This is Entrepreneurs Get Visible, the podcast for people who want more impact, influence, and income. I'm Anna Parker-Naples, and I'll be sharing with you proven methods from leading entrepreneurs that help you get visible as an authority in your field. Because anything's possible when you get visible. I'm talking today about what to do when you know that somebody, a competitor, an old client, even an old friend, is bad-mouthing you, and that it could have a detrimental effect on your business, your profit, your new clients coming aboard, and your mental well-being. And I'm just going to highlight that in no way is anything I'm talking about today on the back of anything recent that's happened for me. I'm making sure that I'm not saying anything libelous or that could be construed as defamation about somebody else. Chances are, if you've clicked to listen to this episode, whether you've just found it in one of the podcast apps that you're listening in, or something on my social media has caused you to come and have a little listen, then either one of two things has probably happened for you or to you. One is that you have become aware that someone is bad-mouthing you, or you have a feeling that they might be, but you can't quite prove it. Or two, you have been considering that maybe some things you've said about somebody else have been a little bit close to the bone and you're concerned about the implications. This is a huge issue in the online space, and I love what the online space has brought to my life. And I particularly see in the coaching and service industry, and especially amongst female entrepreneurs who, on the one hand, tell this story, paint this picture that they are all pro-female empowerment and women helping women. And yet there's a lot of underhand, unkind, quite cruel and unnecessary behaviour that I also see. And I don't like that. I intentionally walk away from situations and people where I find that behaviour happening. And if I notice in myself that maybe my speech, my language has become a bit more negative, or I've become really moany about someone or something, then I take that as a sign that I need to do some inner work and really work on what's that all about. Because the more we tell ourselves negative stories about someone hurting us, injuring us, it actually just keeps us really stuck. And that's not how I want to be. So when I suspect or know that someone has been bad-mouthing me, the first thing I will do is really journal out what's hurting me the most about that, how much of what they're saying is true, and what are the painful lessons, but valuable lessons that I could use from that situation. And you might not be ready to do that to start with, but every awful situation we go through, there is something we can do for ourselves and process for ourselves and learn from for ourselves. The other thing then, once you've got to the bottom of what's really hurting you about it, is working out, is there actually something that's been libelous that's actually causing your business to tank in some way? And is it true that they have been responsible for that loss in your business? And sometimes that is true. I recently did an episode over on podcasting for entrepreneurs about the importance of making sure when you are commenting on your podcast or in your socials that you make sure you don't cross that line into actually indicating or naming individuals or groups of people that it could be traced back to that individual, that character, that person, that company. And if you don't do that, then you're in a tricky spot right there. So if you are on the receiving end, as it were, it's maybe worth talking to a lawyer, and particularly a contract lawyer if this person has been a client of yours, or you've had some form of contract or non-disclosure agreement in the past, to just see what grounds would I have for having potentially a cease and desist letter or even raising a legal claim against them. And very often in those situations, you will be told that unless something is in writing, it's potentially hard, like hearsay is hard to uncover. And in order to get any retribution from that, in terms of financial compensation, you would have to be able to document and prove your loss of earnings. Now, that could be really difficult unless you've literally got a client who was about to sign on the dotted line and then didn't because of something they were told or had sent to them about you. But most of the time, whilst you might want to go on the attack, whilst you might want to publicly name and shame and call somebody out for their poor behaviour, or do one of those encrypted posts on social media where you don't mention any names but everybody reading it would be able to work it out, those posts never help you win. And winning is not the ultimate outcome. For me, it's not about winning or losing. It's about walking away with your dignity intact. So no matter how much what's happened to you might be hurting right now, I would encourage you to just take a step back. Take a step back from the fray. Take a step back from the social media. Take a step back completely from the people involved in that scenario and just do your own thing for a while. Because what happens when you're really present with what that hurt has been, when you really journal around it, when you go deep into your meditation practices, your journaling practices, when you surround yourself with different people and you disallow yourself from talking about it over and over and over. I think sometimes we can talk about things that have hurt us too much and actually we stay in that point of pain and we don't allow ourselves to move forward. Then you can come to terms with what has happened and probably learn that there were some warning signs, some intuitive flashes, some gut responses that you had been missing for a long time or you'd been ignoring for a long time. Very often when scenarios happen for me, I knew that the person involved might well be problematic or sticky, but because they were well connected or I don't know, I liked their social media and was drawn into what they did, that I let my guard down and I didn't go with those gut moments. And so in situations where I know that I've been bad-mouthed or some other such way that you could describe a scenario like that, actually what's been really good for me is to remember that I kind of always knew. I kind of knew this might be a problem. I kind of knew this person. There were some warning signs for me about them. So if you are going through that, I would actively start looking for a crowd in a different direction and see this instead of running away and being hurt and injured, see this as a dignified way to open your world and find others on the same wavelength as you. Because unfortunately, and this is one of the things that really does depress me about the whole coaching and online space, is that many people who profess to be in the trauma or the healing or the motivational space, actually some of their behaviours are really unkind. And I know for me that has at times made me question, is this a space I want to be in? Do I want to be actively putting out motivational and inspirational content if potentially I'm going to be lumped in with people who are actually displaying very unkind behaviours that don't sit and align with my values? For me, though, it allows me to have a period of consolidation, review, appraisal on who I am and why I'm actually doing the work that I do. It forces me to go deeper and ultimately come out stronger. What I see is that, first of all, disclaimer, I think masterminds and group coaching can be incredibly powerful. And I actively make sure I am in masterminds. In fact, I think I'm in 3 or 4 right now for different reasons. But some of those masterminds, some of the big ones we see online can actually become very cliquey. And that for me is then challenging. And so I want you to be aware that your behaviours online, who you connect with, are not overly influenced by these girl gangs, by these tribes of people, and your fear about having some level of, I want to say castigation, but that's all right. As I was going to say castigation, I suddenly thought about castration and thought I'd got the word horribly wrong. But you get my point. Make sure your actions always and your behaviour is something you can be proud of, and that the people you're associating with are in line with you and your values. In this world, not everybody will love us. Many people will not like us. And actually, some people will actively dislike us. And you know what? That's okay, as long as you feel that you can hold your head up with pride and dignity and have real integrity. By that, I mean not the word integrity that I see bandied around on social media so often that it almost loses its meaning. If someone's bad-mouthing you, keep your head held high, step away from the fray, and go in a much more powerful direction, owning who you are and not dimming your light. If you are in the middle of having a challenging situation, I would welcome you to reach out and just offload to me. You're welcome to send me a note or a voicemail to just let me know that this has touched you today, that you are in the middle of that, because my goodness, you are not alone. And one of the challenging things is that you want to potentially bite back on social media, but it will do you no favours whatsoever. So dig deep, stand tall, deep breath, and go back to why you're really doing your work.
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. To get your free checklist on how to raise your profile and to find out about our community, go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get visible.